Good morning, Asaba. Good morning, Delta. Good morning, Nigeria. It's another brand new week, another fresh week. And this is the Daily Brief on Bigheart 92.1 FM, Asaba. And I am Marvelous Akbi, and I'm here to help you start your fresh week with the newspaper review program on Bigheart 92.1 FM, the only station that beats for you. And for the next 25 minutes, I'll bring you the biggest stories making the front pages of Nigeria's leading newspapers, and then we'll talk a little about what they mean and how it matters to us. So today we'll be looking at issues surrounding Nigeria's economy, government spending, power supply, insurance, student loans, and the ongoing political exchanges between the presidency and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. So after that's at the end of the program. We'll leave you with a feel-good musical session to kickstart your Monday. So let's dive straight to the headlines, starting with the Nation newspaper this morning. All right, so this morning on the Nation newspaper, we have the first story that says presidency contradicts Atiku's claims on economy's performance. Presidency contradicts Atiku's claims on economy's performance. And then we have right there where it says vice president outdated data to access economic outlook. Okay, it says the ex-vice president is using outdated data to access the economic outlook of the country. So presidency contradicts Atiku's claims on economy's performance. And away from that headline, we have Igbo were compensated after civil war, says Gowon. Gowon is saying that Igbos were compensated after civil war. This is actually one discussion that I try as much as possible not to get really into, because this is something that affects an entire tribe, an entire nation, and then it's a very sensitive matter. Okay, so you can grab a copy of the Nation newspaper to read up more on that story. And then we also have Dangote signs $800 million deal on expansion of Ilorin cement plant capacity to 12 MPA. All right, and you have that on the Nation newspaper. Also on the Nation, we have Nel Fund disburses 303.91 billion naira to 1.63 million students. Nel Fund disburses 303.91 billion naira to 1.6 million students. That's on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Also, we have 43 insurance companies beat NICOM's deadline. 43 insurance company beats NICOM's deadline. Troops rescue 34 kidnapped victims. Arrest ISWAP informant. Troops rescue 34 kidnapped victims and arrest ISWAP informant. Why federal government may not prune foreign missions. That's according to the minister. Why federal government may not prune foreign missions by minister. All right, that's all from the Nation newspaper. Let's move on to the Guardian, where it says on the Guardian, 10 trillion naira investment in 13 years failed to lift power supply. 10 trillion naira investment in 13 years failed to lift power supply. You can find that on page 11, and it says, we are resetting the sector, power minister says. And then federal government generation companies disagree over 6.2 trillion naira debt. More bonds issuance underway. And then subsidy claims padded, consumers allege. All right, still on the Vanguard, we have Dangote Sinoma signed $800 million MOU to expand Itori cement plant capacity to 12 MTPA. That's on page 8 of the Vanguard. And we have NICOM complete capitalization, clears 43 insurers. That's also on the Vanguard newspaper, but on page 14. Presidency slams Atiku over criticism of federal government's economic policies. And that's on page 8. Presidency slams Atiku over criticism of federal government's economic policies. And still on the Vanguard, we have former President Goodluck Jonathan visits Tinubu, President Bola Tinubu. There's a photo of him with former President Goodluck Jonathan. And then we have Kogi launches forest. Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo was at the passing out parade of the first batch of 530 armed forest guards in Lokoja, Kogi State over the weekend. He's launching the forest guard. And then we have Onaika to the Northern Christians, Senator Sani, others defend Catholic bishops. It's Catholic priests not like fake bishops. That's coming from Atiku. Flays presidency's attack on Onaika. They speak truth to power. That's coming from Senator Shehu Sani, and it's on page 5 of the Vanguard. And then we have Oshunpol plots to arrest 46 Accord leaders uncovered. Oshunpol's plot to arrest 46 Accord leaders uncovered. Adeleke Campaign Council is speaking, and it's on page 16. 6 soldiers killed, father's sons burnt alive as terrorist attack Zamfara and Sokoto communities. That's on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. All right, away from the Vanguard now to the Punch. And on the Punch, we have abandoned projects. Federal government bars ministries from awarding unfunded contracts. Abandoned projects. Federal government bars ministries from awarding unfunded contracts. Treasury tightens rules to curb abandoned projects, unpaid liabilities, and fiscal indiscipline. Also, MDA's accounting officers face ICPC action for approving unfunded projects. And we have BPP to reject no objection request without proof of available funds. That's all on abandoned projects. Federal government bars ministries from awarding unfunded contracts. All right, we have Power Tussle rocks Obi Kwankwaso campaign teams. Power Tussle rocks Obi Kwankwaso campaign teams, and that's on page 7 of the Punch. We have Nigeria earns 24 trillion naira from crude exports in 6 months. Power Tussle. Okay, Nigeria earns 24 trillion naira from crude exports in 6 months, and that's on page 13. Still on the Punch newspaper. Fake agency scandal. Controversial DG fights back, fingers more MDAs. Fake agency scandal. Controversial DG fights back, fingers more MDAs. Speeding driver killed in Lagos road crash. That's on page 4 of the Punch. And then we have insurance recapitalization. NICOM clears 43 insurers and reviews 8. Still on the Punch, we have despite billions spent, over 6,500 PHCs still non-functional. Despite billions spent, over 6,500, that's power holding companies, still non-functional. And that's on the Punch newspaper, page 2. All right, finally, let's move on to The Guardian, where it says 10 insurers risk liquidation as 43 scale recapitalization hurdle. And that's on page 6 of The Guardian. And then also on The Guardian this morning, we have Nigeria in $15 billion flood losses as experts see wider insurance coverage. Nigeria in $15 billion flood losses as experts see wider insurance coverage. All right, and then we have Atiku presidency bicker over economic performance and Nigeria's reality. CPPE puts Nigeria's real sector financing gap at 50 trillion naira. Also, we have Osun 2026 CSO urges credible election as parties seek last-minute support. Osun 2026, CSO urges credible election as parties seek last-minute support. And that's on the news page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. All right, and that's all we'll be taking from the Guardian this morning. All right, and now that's all we'll be taking from the papers. But taking a look at the papers this morning, a story that I found quite interesting was the government's move against abandoned projects. So, according to reports from the Punch, it says that the federal government has introduced tougher financial controls by stopping ministries and government agencies from awarding contracts that have no money allocated for them. And the decision is aimed at reducing abandoned projects across Nigeria. I think it's a good decision. Taking a look at Nigeria and how we have so many abandoned projects, and when you try to reach out, the engineers tell you that these projects we awarded to them and they were asked to start, and then funds were later not released for the project. That's why we have so many abandoned projects. So this is one policy many Nigerians may welcome. There are thousands of abandoned roads, hospitals, schools, water projects, and successive governments announce projects every year. Yet many are still left unfinished because funding runs out or it wasn't properly secured before contracts were awarded. So it means that if this works, definitely we'll see better use of taxpayers' money, and then contractors will be paid promptly, which would also mean that abandoned projects could reduce significantly. But the real challenge isn't about making these policies. Like we always say, we'll be watching closely. It's not about making policies to make Nigerians feel good. Let's see the impact of these policies in the long run. All right, and then we also had the issue of electricity. Electricity is one thing that I think almost every president that has contested for office has promised Nigerians better electricity to be restored. There's also this video of the president that keeps trending on social media about what he had to say about electricity. But then it's been years now in office, and I don't know if I can say there's been an improvement. So according to Vanguard, over 10 trillion naira has reportedly gone into Nigeria's power sector over the last 13 years. Yet, millions of Nigerians still experience blackouts daily, and it remains one of Nigeria's biggest economic challenges. If you're on social media, just try to argue with one African country, they're going to come at Nigerians. Are you typing this from your power bank? Do you have electricity to argue with someone in South Africa or even Ghana? Sometimes it can get really embarrassing, and I remember a couple of times it's gotten to me, but this is really not our fault. And as Nigerians, we've mostly found other means of getting electricity. Families spend huge amounts on petrol, and now the switch to solar systems and all of that. Small businesses lose income due to unreliable power, and government says reforms are ongoing as usual. But then the important question that we are still asking is, where exactly did all the investment go? What was it used for? Millions of naira, and we cannot say this is exactly what we got out of this. A light still goes out without warning. Sometimes you don't even get it for days, and I think it improved lately. I don't know since the rainy season started, but from somewhere around December last year till like February, we had really epileptic power supply, and I hope we do not get to experience that again anytime soon. All right, and there was also a story about Atiku and the economy. So the Nation newspaper reports that the presidency rejected recent comments made by former vice president, made by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar concerning Nigeria's economy. So the government argues that Atiku relied on outdated figures. And the opposition insists that Nigerians are experiencing genuine economic hardship. So, Nigerians, what do you think, my fellow Nigerians? Do you think that we are genuinely experiencing economic hardship, or truly, Atiku is depending on outdated figures to judge Nigeria's present situation? You know, as Nigerians, we are supposed to judge performance, not only economic statistics. So whatever it says on the papers, whatever we get from some of these bodies coming to tell us that yes, Nigeria is improving, Nigeria has left recession, Nigeria is this, Nigeria is now developed, but we as Nigerians, the masses, what exactly are we feeling? What are we experiencing? Are jobs increasing? Can families now afford food? Businesses thriving now? So these questions often matter way more than simply arguing or seeing what's been written on the papers. Anyways, these are some of the stories that I found really interesting from the papers this morning. So before I go, I'd like to say that as we begin another working week, here's something that you should reflect on. Good governance isn't simply measured by promises made. Good governance is measured by improvements people can actually see, and not just see, improvements that people can feel, whether it's electricity, infrastructure, education, or the economy. Citizens ultimately judge leadership by results, right? So that's where we draw the curtains on today's edition of the Daily Brief on Bigheart 92.1 FM. Many thanks for making us a part of your Monday morning. Join me again tomorrow at 8 a.m. for another edition of the Daily Brief right here on Bigheart 92.1 FM, the only station that beats for you. And don't forget that you can always follow us on all our social media platforms. We're on Facebook at Bigheart FM Asaba. On X, it's Bigheart FM Asaba. Instagram, Bigheart 92.1 FM Asaba. And our YouTube channel is Bigheart 92.1 FM Asaba. We're also on Threads, and it's Bigheart 92.1 FM Asaba. On TikTok, it's Bigheart 92.1 FM. All right, thank you so much, and it's a bye for now.